But I want to go to something that's a huge issue in Melbourne tonight, again after an announcement last week in relation to ANZAC Day being cancelled. Well, young veterans are now calling on the RSL to reverse its decision. And it comes after the Queensland government confirmed their march would go ahead as normal. Now, of course, the Melbourne City Council can do the famed Moomba Festival. There's plenty of encouragement there from the Andrews government about that. We saw, of course, the Australian Open in Melbourne with crowds. Not so, it would seem, ANZAC Day. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now by the president of the Hawthorn RSL and former soldier, Mr. Lucas Moon. Lucas, I really appreciate you coming on the show. This is one of those issues, I tell you what, that has gone off right around the country, not just in Melbourne. You're one of the veterans that are leading the charge for this ANZAC Day to go ahead. A huge issue. Queensland can do it without restrictions. New South Wales are still doing it, albeit it's a little bit scaled back. If they can do it, why not Victoria?
That's an absolutely great point, Peter, and that's the one that I guess concerns veterans in Victoria. We want a COVID-safe march, and we can abide by the rules and follow the rules. And I think it's just disappointing to us, and the hurtful bit is RSL Victoria, the organisation that is meant to advocate and represent us, has hastily cancelled the march. And even tonight, I've just recently seen the state president, and he stated majority of the veterans are elderly. That is just disheartening to all the veterans that have served since post-Vietnam, which we believe there's 3-1 in the current numbers. So your Rwandas, Somalias, East Timor, Iraq, Afghanistan, we seem to have been forgotten about.
It's so true you make that point about the younger and let's call them middle-aged veterans as opposed to our very elderly veterans. And we know, of course, it's a massive issue of mental health for our younger veterans. And look, let's not forget Vietnam veterans for so long have suffered, quite rightly, and Korean as well, about being forgotten. Why do you think the Victorian RSL was so quick to cancel the march? And why do you think they're not listening to voices like yours now?
Well, it's just unfortunate. I just think they're not connected with the majority of the veteran community, and they're in their headquarters at 4 Collins Street. I mean, they can reach out and consult members. The other second component is they had to roll up the sleeves and do a bit of work, and they had to put pen to paper and put together a COVID plan. So, it appears to us that they've taken the easy option and discounted the benefits. And as you mentioned, Peter, there has been lots of noise lately about veteran suicides, the Afghan inquiry, the government's inaction, and with DVA. So these things are hot on the topic, and a catch-up on ANZAC Day is a great... You don't have to speak, but you can acknowledge and all feel the sense of connection with your fellow veterans, and that means so much to a lot of veterans, and it's a central point to meet up is in Melbourne.
Yeah, it's been a pretty weak response to the Victorian government. I'll come to that in a minute, but I have to say that there's a Federal Veterans Minister, Darren Chester. He's from Gippsland, so he's a Victorian. He understands this issue. It's front and centre of the papers down here. I was really disappointed when he backed in the RSL. I mean, he gets up in the Parliament, Chester, and says all of these things about mental health issues and suicide, and I, take him at his word, he's genuine. But this is your one time in the year, and we didn't know it didn't happen last year in the usual way. It's a one time in the year where veterans can get together and you've got that sense of camaraderie again. Why on earth can't you have a restricted event? I mean, why can't you put the very elderly in cars? They'd be COVID safe, they'd be away from the crowds. If there's one sort of section of society that's going to abide by the rules, but you'd hope it would be the veterans. Why can't we do it but do it safely?
Oh, absolutely, Peter. And we do acknowledge, and the veteran community was disappointed with the Veterans Minister and his unwavering support for the leadership of RSL Victoria. It does exactly that. It touched us because it means a lot to us. But you're dead right. A lot of industries did operate throughout COVID, construction industry being one. They implemented safe spacing and mask and sanitizer, and that's all we're asking. We don't want at all anyone to be in danger or not safe, but I can assure you that veterans will follow the rules, and I think we should plan for a COVID-safe, normal event. Touch wood, if there was a third wave in Victoria, we would respect the umpire's decision if that was the case. But we're 2 months out from there, and everything's looking quite good. I understand the risk to our elderly veterans. No one's forcing them to come, and if they don't feel comfortable, they don't have to come. But not all our veterans are elderly, old men. There's a lot of younger men and women that have served this nation.
Okay, just a couple of quick ones before we go. What's your message tonight to the Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews and the Victorian RSL? Well,
I think the Premier came out today and said he it's too easy, but his minister said he would assist the RSL. My advice to the leadership of the RSL would be put your hand up and accept that guidance and advice, and the public and your members and those that you're meant to represent, being veterans, expect you to plan a COVID-safe event and a march. That's my message.
All right, I know that the outcry in Queensland caused a massive back down. Up there, New South Wales was always going to support veterans. A lot of my viewers want to support you. Where can they lend their voice to your campaign?
That's a good question. If anyone can work out how to get the year of RSL Victoria, it'd be much appreciated. But government pressure on RSL Victoria would be much appreciated, and to guide them through, and also I guess the public pressure. I mean, this is RSL Victoria that scaled back or cancelled this event. This is not the government. So unfortunately, maybe it's, we look at the big picture, and maybe it's just time for change in the ESO space and the veteran space, change of leadership. If we can't get our act together and plan ANZAC Day, maybe it's just time for change, and maybe the public should be requesting that maybe we need some leadership change across the board.
Look, one of the issues, though, what they quoted at the time, and I heard the President on radio, was to do with funding. That's where government, state and federal, of course, can step in. There was plenty of funding that went to the tennis from the Andrews government. So let's all raise our voices. I'll put details on my Facebook page where people can contact the Victorian head office of the RSL, where people can contact the two Veterans Ministers, the one in Victoria and the one there in Canberra. But Lucas, you've done a fantastic job to at least highlight this issue. All the best to you. Thanks for your time tonight.
No worries. Thank you, Peter. Thanks for having me on.
There you go. President of the RSL there in Hawthorn, and a veteran himself.